Okay, are we recording now? Yeah, okay. The host is recording, which is great. And okay, some more announcement. So last Saturday, we had a program gathering party in Beijing. So we do have a group of people there, which is great fun. And probably I could show more pictures in the chat later on. And it is great fun. And the next month in November, we have another party gathering in Wuhan. So for those of you who are in or near the city, please consider joining our party there in Wuhan next month in late November. Okay, tonight we're going to have 3 speakers, and each of them are going to give a very brief introduction about some basic fundamental principles of how they're working out for their tech projects. So for the very first one, the Internet Worms group, presented by Jin Yicheng, currently as a student at the chemical engineering at the University of Washington in Seattle. So Jin Yicheng, please go ahead.
Okay, hello everyone in Zooms. Today I will give a brief talk about this topic in my screen, the principles of the web worms, or we can call it the crawlers or the spiders. And first, let me introduce myself. I was in my gap year actually, and I'm from the Juno group. And now let's start. And I will give a brief introduction about our group. The Juno group's the goal is we want to establish a network-wide journal database and provide geoscience journal information and related search codes. So each group of students can search for related data and obtain information much faster. And what we want, in other words, what should the database have? We want the paper's information, for example, the DOI, the title, the abstract, or the download link, etc. And the last question is how to do this job, or the method. It is also today's topic, the web worm. So now let's see these words. You can clearly find our object. The information are all in the web. So suppose you guys do not have any related skills and background knowledge about Internet One. In order to have a better understanding about Internet One, I prepared several points today to give a brief shot about the web. So here we go. So actually, today's web page actually written in 3 computer languages. The first one is called the HTML language. The full name is the Hypertext Markup Language. It was used to write the basic elements of the page, or we can call these basic elements the nodes. So the web page actually made up by many kinds of the nodes. And the second language is called the CSS language. The CSS language full name is Cascading Style Sheet Language. It's kind of a decorating language. It was used to define the style of these nodes. So it's just kind of give the unique character to the nodes. And the last one is called the JavaScript. This language is very different from the former 2 language. It's a real computer language. That means it's very similar like our Python or the Java or the C++. It's an interactive language and it was used to realize human-computer interaction. So if you want to be a front-stage engineer, you will need to learn these 3 languages. And now, after learning these definitions, I will go into give a real example. Hope you can have better understanding. And this is the journal that I have run before. As you can see, here the left side is the journal website that you can actually see on our browser, right? And the right side here is the source code of this web. So what we can actually say is very different, right? This is source code. This is what we can see on our browser. It's very different. And here, the right cycle here, the H1 class, and this single quotation marks means the nodes. And the green cycle here, the green cycle is the CSS, is given by the CSS language. So this is the unique character of this H1 node. And the blue cycle here is the text of this node. So here is the format of how a front station writes a node, right? Here the blue one is the text of this node. And let's see, this blue one, this is non-sequential injection of pGRH, right? This is actually the title of this paper. You can see this is actually the title of the paper. So we have the conclusion. What we can see on our browser is the source code, the node text part. So all the informations are in the node text. So now you may have an idea about what we need to do in next step, right? We need to select the character node from the source code and use its text part. And now let's see what actually happened in Python. I mean the one algorithm. So the first step, the one will send an HTTP request to the web service, and this step is very similar to how we access our website. The HTTP request usually concludes the URLs, the cookies, and the IP address. And all of these things are used to identify your computer behavior. And the next step is after the web service receives the request, it will automatically feed back the response. Here, the red word is the response. So the response is actually the web source code. So here, the response is actually these things, this source code. And the next step is the most important step. The one after the one receives this response, the one will retrieve the response and find the nodes we want and give its text value to the variables, right? And the last step is the one will automatically save these variables and output into documents. We have many type of documents. We can save it in .csv, .xls, as I said before, right? The step 3 is the most important step. So let's go deep into the step 3. And that's why I talked about how the web are written at the beginning. In order to select the node we want, here I use the H1 node, for example. We have two selectors that we can use. The first one is called XPath selector. It works to select the design node according to the path of the HTML element. And the second selector is called CSS selector. We select the node through the character of the node, right? That is the word of CSS means, right? We use the CSS to give the character of the node. Let's see, how do we use these two selectors in this example? Here, the first one, we just set up a new variables called name the title, right? We know this text is the title of this paper. So we set up a new variable named title, and we give its text value, the node text value to the title. Here we use a response.xpath. XPath means we call the XPath function. And in parentheses, remember, what we can put in this parameter should be in the string type. So in the Python, we use the quotes marks to change the data type into a string. And in the XPath grammar, we use the slash to mean the in parentheses path. But if you want to find a node just in the middle of the source code, we don't need to write all the paths. For example, we don't need to write the div slash section slash. We don't need to do that things. We just use the dot slash slash double slash to mean all the in parentheses paths from the node we want. So here we just select the father node of the H1 node because the character of this father node is very short, right? So we use the div. This is father node of the H1 father node, right? We should use this format to choose the father node and use a slash and to find its children node. The children node is what we want, right? And we use the slash and the text with empty parentheses. This means we can call its text part, and we give the text part to the title variable. And in the second selector, the CSS selector, its grammar is different. It's a little bit different with the XPath selector. We use the H1. H1 is the node name we want, and the DAO, and what's behind the DAO is character, right? And we use the two columns with text to call its text function, text parts, and then we give this text value to the title. Because the limit of time, I cannot fully explain it in details, but here are the 3 videos just by our group members about how to use Python to actually achieve what I said just now. So, and there are their links. But these videos are just in Chinese. So if you want to learn something in English, I suggest you to search the CSS lecture or Express lecture on Google or on YouTube. And now it seems a lot of work we need to do, right? But luckily, we don't need to do all of this algorithm by ourselves, because our Python has many useful and powerful cron libraries. They have their own frameworks and features. What we need to do is follow these frameworks to complete our cron program. And here, we have the built-in libraries, the request, the URL-lib, Attic, and we have the external library, the Scrappy, the PyRaygun, Attic. And our group uses this library. It has many advantages. It works very fast. It was easy to understand, and it has the power of the multi-threading and the data cleaning. And if you want to learn this internet one, here are the suggestions I will give you. So the first, I suggest you to use the request for practice. And when you are familiar with the request framework, then you can start learning Scrappy. And we have using this library to ground down more than 600,000 data. The one data means the one paper's information. And the last part is the challenges we're facing in this job. So suppose the one works like with others' house, right? And take back the information that not belongs to you. If you go to your friend's house, they are very nice and will not prevent you. But what actually happens in life is that the spider are the enemies of the website. So almost every website, almost every front station engineers have defensive method to detect the one and prevent it, to protect themselves from attack. So here are the common defensive methods we use. The first one, they were using verification code. And the second, they need you to log in. And the last but not the least one is the most strict way. They will force out the suspicious IP address, right? But although we have those challenges, we still have the solution. About the first one, we can use the OCR-lib. The full name is optical character recognition. It's kind of machine learning, right? So it can help us, it can automatically recognize the verification code and conclude it into the HTTP request. And the second, we need to log in before, and we need to carefully control the ground speed. And the last one is on the way. I suggest you change your IP address. And luckily, they usually block the IP address only for 1 day. So that means after 1 day, you can continue your spider work. And this is all the things I want to show you today. And thanks for watching my talk.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. So do we have any quick questions? Okay, it's great. Thank you for sharing, Jing Cheng. Okay, next, Li Xingchen, could you share your screen?
Oh yeah, of course. Maybe Jing Cheng, you should stop your sharing this. Okay. Can you see the PowerPoint now? And can you hear me? Oh no. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry.
Now it works. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. I have to. Okay. And okay. Hello. Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Li Xingchen from Group Cloud, and combining with what I have learned from my group work, I would like to share some of my understanding of cloud computing with all of you today. And as you see, these are all our group members. And firstly, I think maybe you want to figure out what is cloud computing. Well, as the definition given by NIST, cloud computing is a model. Then, what kind of model it is? From Wikipedia, it said cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage and computing power without direct active management by the user. Well, that means there's no need for you to manage hardware or other infrastructure, and there's no need for you to build computer centers. What you have to do is just paying for what you need and submitting your packages to the platform. Well, in this chart, it illustrates the most popular and competitive companies which provides cloud computing up to the August 2020. And you can see that the big three are AWS from Amazon and Azure from Microsoft and Google. You can also find Alibaba and Tencent in this picture. Okay, and I want to show you an example to let you know how to use cloud computing and how easy it is. I will take AWS for example. It provides different kinds of services to handle different kinds of work. What you have to do first is to choose a service that, and then you can choose a cloud computing center considering about your location. You can set the computer configuration, which is based on your need. Then the AWS calculator will estimate your total cost. After you pay it, you can use the resource freely. Really easy, isn't it? And the using of Huawei Cloud is also the same. Well, although it seems easy for us to use cloud computing, it do has a tremendous system and a lot of branches. And I think some basic knowledge may help us to have a better knowledge of how it works. Well, the first one is cloud computing is based on virtualization. Usually, virtualization is the process of running a virtual instance of a computer system in a layer abstract from the actual hardware, but hardware, storage, network can all be virtualized. And there are three types of cloud computing. The first one is public cloud. All hardware, software, and other supporting infrastructure is owned and managed by the cloud provider. You access these services and manage your account using a web browser. Huawei Yun is belong to public cloud. And the private cloud. Cloud computing resource is used exclusively by a business or organization. A private cloud can be physically located on the company's on-site data center. Some companies also pay third-party service providers to host their private cloud. A private cloud is one in which the services and the infrastructure are maintained on a private network, and governments usually use this kind of cloud computing. Well, the last one is hybrid cloud, which combines the public and the private cloud together. Well, there are also three types of cloud services, and you can see three of them in this picture. And IaaS includes some basic configuration, and the PaaS is designed to make it easier for developers to quickly create web or mobile apps without worrying about setting up or managing the underlying infrastructure of servers, storage, network, and databases. So it added operating systems and some development tools. And finally, SaaS is a method for delivering software applications over the internet. Users connect to the application over the internet usually with a web browser on their phone, tablet, or PC. These three kind of model build on top of one another. And finally, after you have finished all the work, you need to use Docker to submit your program to the platform. Usually, you need a folder to accommodate your Docker file, codes, data, and sometimes some of your settings, maybe. And it is an example of a Docker file in which you need to define the environment of your images and some other command as you see here. And finally, what you should do is just hand in your image by the Docker, and your program will be loaded on the platform. Just wait for its result. And here is the complete process of cloud computing. And I hope by this share, you have had a frame of the cloud computing, and you can ask any questions really. Okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So do you have any questions from the audience? Yeah,
okay,
wait.
then I will.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, please exit sharing the screen. Yeah, and then we do ask our team participants that who use, if any of the calculation that use more than 10 minutes of your personal computer, yeah, please consider putting them on Huawei Cloud.
Yeah.
Okay, that looks good. And Jose, could you share your screen?
Yes, sure. Or can you hear me clearly? Professor Zhang,
Yes.
can you hear?
Okay. Yeah. Voice is clear. I think normally there is a delay in the pictures. So normally the voice comes first and the pictures comes next. But I think it should be okay. It's just a couple of seconds of delay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'm the leader of the machine learning group, and today I'm going to launch a brief introduction of how to be a member of to join our machine learning group. And this kind of contents I need you to know, and this is quite essential for you, even if you don't have any idea about the algorithm of the machine learning before, because we believe that after joining this group and you can learn quickly through the resources on the internet or the video we have put on the Bilibili or like in the YouTube. So today, after considering how to just make them short for you guys to know what we are doing, and I just make them in those questions. And after answering those questions, I will hope that you guys will know what the machine learning members are operating and how they interact with other groups and how they work with the codes. And specifically, it's the most critical for us to do is to do the job with the codes, right? So here are a bunch of questions we need to answer. The first is where to find the codes we have and how to execute them, and what's the difference between this repository of new algorithm and another repository old algorithm. And after that, if you make your own codes, how can you do some contribution to the repository already have in their GitHub or Git. And the next is to how to apply those algorithms we have into the practice. And the final one is to explore the resource we have and we have already built for our group. Because after thinking a lot about whether I need to tell you guys about the knowledge of the algorithm, and I think a lot, and I think it's quite short for us to just brief them in 10 minutes. And apart from the other two, the others group saying we have a mature code management platform to upload our codes, and you can see the achievement by other group members. So based on that, I think that it's quite important to know the whole process of how to be a good members of the machine learning. And in this presentation, I will combine some real practice and with some knowledge base which are basic and you need to know. So where to find them? And now we have two platforms to hold our code we already have. The first one is Git, and it's so here, and the other one is GitHub. and both platforms are synchronized, even if they are not mirroring, but they are the same, whatever in the new algorithm repository or in the old algorithm repository. And I will just make them the same all the time. And after just knowing how to find the code and how can you get the code, because except for the member in the machine learning group, the other ones in the scientific group or from other groups, they will have the need to just download the code and which has been written by the machine learning groups. And there are 3 ways for us to do it. The first one is to download the zip directly. And it's the most easy one to do because it doesn't need you to have any basic knowledge with the Git or this kind of distributed code management controlled language. And the other one is the GitHub desktop. And also the marvelous one is the Git language itself. And we can see here, like when you just open this page and you just click one of the repository. After entering it and what you can do, because in this part, the most important one for us to do is how to download the code and how can you use it. So here is a button about the code, and here are the 3 ways. You can download the zip directly, and after you download it, you can find it in your, just like this. Sorry. Here and new algorithm and old algorithm. In this directory, there are all of the codes we have put on the GitHub or Git. And also it can work in the app like the GitHub desktop. And you can just store all the code in this app. And apart from this, you can use the Git language to download the code directly in the terminal on Macs or like the CMD on the Windows, like this. If you know how to control, or if you know how to use the cell language on Linux, and because they are originated from the same version of the computing system, Unix, and you can just download the code directly through this Git language. And if you are familiar with it, and there are 3 ways to download the code, and after that you can use the code directly. Okay, just go back to the PT. And the next thing is about how to execute the code, because after grasping all the code you need, and the next step for you to do is to execute them. So how to do that job? So mostly there are 2 common IDE we use for the Pythonese, because if you use Python to do the code work, and there are 2 common IDE for you to do. The first one is the Jupyter Notebook, and which is plugged into the Anaconda, and the other one is the PyCharm, and they represent 2 different kinds of style of typing the code. I will show you right now. The first one is to use the Jupyter Notebook, and it's quite easy to use it. You can just open the Anaconda directory like this. Sorry. Yeah. And you can see that the Jupyter Notebook is shown here, and you just click the launch. After that, it will open the page, and you can just choose what what file you want to execute. Like because we download all the file in here. Wait. You can see the file of the new algorithm and also the other file of the old algorithm. And I just choose them randomly. And you can see I just clip one of the algorithm a class of clustering. And after it, you can execute all the code we have written. And the other one is about the PyCharm. And also it works, but if you are not good at coding, it's not recommended for you to execute your code on the PyCharm because it needs you to know something about the computer knowledge, like this. I just choose one of the code I have downloaded from the repository of all the algorithm. And this is the calculator. And after you just open it, and what you should do next is to set up the configurations. And almost when you are doing this, there are two things you need to set. The first is the script pace, which means which directs to the pace of this script exists. And the other one is the Python interpreter. And you should choose the Python version for your local computer version. And after doing this, you can run it. And this is a part about how to execute the code. And what's the difference? And then we should know what's the difference between the new algorithm or repository and the old algorithm repository. Because we have seen that except for the other two groups, and we can see all the code we have put them on the Git or the GitHub, and you can download whatever you want, and they have been coded already. And there are few description of how those code works, and also there are a lot of annotation of almost every line of code, and annotation just tells us how the code works. And so the next thing for us is to figure out what's the difference between them. And if you download the code from the new algorithm repository, and which means that you can do it yourself, because you can just move one block of it, and you can just make a match and make a combination of different scripts of the codes, like this. You can just run this block, and after doing that, you can run this block also, and which means that all of the blocks are almost separatable, even if they have some internal connections, but they are not like what they saw on the old algorithm. Because in the old algorithms repository, all the codes are packaged and already, which means that you don't need to do any change on the code itself. You just need to follow the description and follow the README test. It will tell you how to operate the code one by one, and words you need to parse it as the parameters to the code itself, like this. Like the script we have on the calculator. And we download it from the old algorithm. And here we can see here's the code for the calculator of the end member of the Garnet. And we can delete the result it produced, like this. Wait, I will delete it. Two checks. Okay, and in the code from the old algorithm, the only thing you need to do is to just run the code directly. Like I just click the button of running. And after that, you can see the result will produce automatically. It's kind of magic. You don't do anything. You just follow the description of the steps in the README text directly. So these are the distinctive difference between these two repositories. And after that, how can you to make contribution to the repository? As well as the one we see in how to download the code. And they also have two ways to just upload the files or upload the code you make to the repository. The first one is quite simple because you just need to wait. Yeah, here. Just at the left side of the code button, you just need to click this add file button and you just choose to upload your files. And then you can make your own contribution to the repository. And because you are not the master, so you should get approval from the managers, and they will do the agreement on the pull request, and they will review the code you contribute. And also you can do it more you can do it more like the coded way, in the coded way, which means that you need to learn some basic knowledge about how to do them in the terminals. And you should learn how to use the cell language. And you can learn how to do it through the video on the Bilibili. I'm not showing here. And after that, what algorithm can we apply to the circumstance we want? Now, here are a few machine learning algorithms we have on the repository. They are divided into three parts. The first one is the algorithm of the supervised learning. It comprises of two parts. The first one is the classification, and which includes the SVM and DNN, CNN, etc. And the other part is the regression. Like it's made out of the example learning or polynomial and linear regression and etc. And also the SVM can work in the regression also. The second branch of this repository is the unsupervised learning algorithm, which is made of from two parts. The first one is the dimensionality reduction, like the PCA manifold learning. And the other one is the clustering. And almost, you can see is the k-means, the DBSCAN, and also the Gaussian mixture. Anyway, there are also some other codes which can just fulfill some different jobs, like the calculator for the end member of different rocks. Like we have the Garnet and also the person, and like the three-dimensional plotting and some code about how to do some statistical technique. And all of the code you can find on the Git or the GitHub. And anybody is allowed to download directly from the new algorithm or the old algorithm. And I have just introduced you guys about how to download them directly and how to make your own contribution to them. So the final one is about the way to learn them, because these progress are like, we have done a lot of job on these codes, and also we have made some records on how to learn them, and we have put them on the Bilibili, and also they are in the YouTube. And in our plans, we will just make more videos about how to use those codes or correctly and how to use those code to the specific and the corresponding situations in 2 months. And all of the code will be uploaded in these 2 platforms. And these are the things I hoped you can learn something from this speech. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. Okay, do we have any quick questions from the audience? Okay, thanks again for the 3 speakers tonight. Furthermore, let's upload more videos in the future on Bilibili and YouTube to explain different codes or the details of some procedures, so that in the future, for new participants that are joining into each tag chain, or for other participants that have relatively few Python using knowledge or experiences could catch it up. We do have a lot of students that coming from the science groups that are very eager to learn more coding. So, for example, in the gathering that I had in Beijing last week, that several people, several of our participants showed their eagerness to do so. Okay, that's so much for this week. And next week, we're so 3 of the tag groups present this week won't present next week, and we're going to have a couple of the science teams are going to present their work. Okay, so with that, let's wrap it up today. And yeah, do remember next month we're going to have a party in Wuhan. Okay, have a good night, everybody.